There are 9 NFL teams currently heading into week 3 that are 0-2. And I wanted to make a video about the statistics of 0-3 teams making the playoffs, winning the division, and also making the Super Bowl. But what teams are in the most trouble, in my opinion, of the 4 playoff teams that I have picked, teams that we might have had pegged to make the playoffs before the year got started. Now, I'll change up the graphics and all that stuff and make it about this channel. But since I'm on my Lions Syndicate set, why not just go ahead and do it? So this is coming from the 33rd team. Postseason odds based on season start since 1990. To make the playoffs, if you go 0-3, you have a 75% chance to make the playoffs, with 124 out of 165 making the playoffs. At 0-3, that drops significantly to 2.5%. Only 4 of the 162 have made the playoffs. Now, how about winning your division? If you start 3-0, you have a 51.5%. 85 out of 165 have done that. However, if you start 0-3, it drops down to 1.2%. 2 out of 162. Well, what about the Super Bowl? To win the Super Bowl, not make, but win, 3-0 teams, 9.7%, which is 16 out of the 165. And to win the Super Bowl, no team in the history of the National Football League has done that. Now, that brings me to this point. There are several teams. Like I said before, there are 9 teams that are going into week 3 at 0-2. And out of those teams, I picked 4 to really focus on as teams that I think that went into the season as perennial playoff contenders, people that you thought were going to pick up where they left off last week or last year. And which of these 4 teams do I think are in the most trouble? Well, let's take a look and find out. So we're going to start with the Cincinnati Bengals, and let's go to their schedule real quick. So they're 0-2. This is what they do, though. They're used to going 0-2. Like, they do it all the time, and they come out real slow and then burn the rest of the season a lot of the times. So let's take a look and see who do they have. Now, they lost a close one to Kansas City on a controversial call, and New England, it was one of them things of just not playing in a while. You know what I'm saying? You are rusty. We see it with a lot of starters throughout the league. Now, look at their next 4 games. The Washington Commanders is who they play tomorrow or on Monday night. I take that back. Then they have the Carolina Panthers, the Baltimore Ravens, and the New York Giants. So out of the next 4, I think honestly that it's a safe bet that the Cincinnati Bengals could possibly go 4-0 over the next 4 weeks. I see them beating New York. I see them definitely beating Carolina and beating the Washington Commanders. It's this team here that might give them some trouble. And it's at home, though. So this is going to be a good one. So I think worst case scenario, the Cincinnati Bengals finish their next four games at 3-3, potentially 4-2. Now let's move to the Baltimore Ravens. Let's take a look at their next. Again, I've told you guys before, I cannot stand this team. I just don't like the Baltimore Ravens. Their fan base is just one of the top 3 worst in the NFL. So, lost to the Kansas City Chiefs by a toe, the Las Vegas Raiders in a pretty good game. Now, their next 4, I think, honestly, this team is in trouble. I truly believe that. The Dallas Cowboys, if they can pick up where they left off, they're at home. They just had a 16-game streak broken at home. Dallas Cowboys, the Buffalo Bills, who is all out of bubblegum this year. This is a make-or-break year for, I think, this team. The Cincinnati Bengals, and then the Washington Commanders. Now, I could very well, real talk, bias aside, see the Baltimore Ravens at 1-5 after the next 4 games. I see them potentially losing to Dallas. I think they lose to Buffalo and they lose to Cincinnati. But they beat the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to say worst case scenario, 1-5. Best case scenario, I also think maybe they beat Dallas. I don't think they beat Buffalo, and they beat Washington. So I see 2-4 as their best case scenario. Worst case scenario is going to be 1-5. So that's my thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Los Angeles Rams, a playoff team from last year, lost an overtime game to open up the season in Detroit, and then got mollywopped by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, their next 4, the San Francisco 49ers is going to be at home, the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, and the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that the San Francisco 49ers are going to beat them tomorrow. They're just too injured. I think they go to 0-3. I think they beat Chicago. They go 1-3. Green Bay is up in the air, but I think they could beat them. But they're super injured, and it depends on if Jordan Love comes back. So I'm going to say 0-3, 1-3, 1-4, and maybe 1-5, but they'll be at home, and it really depends. So I'm going to say best case scenario for the Rams, they beat the Chicago Bears and lose the next 3, and they are 1-5, just like the Baltimore Ravens. Best case scenario, in my honest opinion, is that they somehow beat Chicago, Green Bay, and Vegas and get to 3-3 on the season. And last is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is probably the most disappointing team out of the entire NFL playoff kind of teams. They didn't make the playoffs last year. The Jacksonville Jaguars are intriguing. They came out the first year of Doug Peterson and kind of took the world by storm. Then I think the second year they fell off, just blew. They had a division lead, dropped it, and then lost, didn't even make the playoffs, and then coming out 0-2 to start the season. Lost to Miami, lost to the Cleveland Browns. They played this one, Buffalo, I think that's an L. Houston, I think that's an L. Indianapolis Colts, they might be able to beat them, but that's a division game. And then Chicago, that is an L. Man, they played 2 international games back-to-back. I'm sorry, Chicago, that's a W. So I think best case scenario is 3-3. I think they lose to Buffalo, but then they beat 2 division opponents and then Chicago. I think worst case scenario is 1-5 with their only win coming in week 6 against the Chicago Bears. So for the LA Rams, I'm taking best case scenario 3-3. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, best case scenario 3-3. The Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to say best case scenario 2-4 with a 1-5, more like it. And the Cincinnati Bengals are probably the team, in my opinion, that can really do what they do, turn it around and go 4-2 is their best case scenario. I think, honestly, 3-3 is their worst. I think they get it together and they get this ball rolling. So, again, I'm going to continue to put content over here, whether it gets seen or not. I enjoy talking about the NFL. Eventually, I will change the setup to match this channel, and we'll go for that. I might even bring the green screen back. I'm not sure, but I enjoy talking about the NFL, so we are going to do that. You guys are awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking by me this entire time, man, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.